Hello, my name is Mark and I thank you so much for coming by today. Well, I just got back from the grocery store and I have some goodies here that I just picked up. I didn't pick up a lot because usually when I go to the grocery store I plan it, and I have these reusable bags that I bring with me. They're these big blue hand-woven stitched bags that they're very durable. They cost about $5 a piece and I have a few of those. But when I don't plan on going to the grocery store and I just happen to swing by to pick up a couple of things, they usually give you a paper bag. Plastic bags are a no-no where I live, and there's so many grocery stores where I live. This is from, you can see, Whole Foods, and their paper bags are probably a little more expensive to get because they're printed and they have these neat handles. But some of the grocery stores like Stop and Shop, Market Basket, Price Chopper, Shaw's, Hannaford's, Big Y. There's so many grocery stores where I live that they all have their form of paper bag. I like paper bags for using for grocery shopping, but I prefer my reusable bags. I love paper bags, however, as an art supply, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So don't throw away your paper bags before you watch this video because they're fun to use as an art supply, and I'll explain that and more in just a bit. So come on along, and hopefully we'll have some fun. So I have to admit, I never thought that I would be having a conversation about paper bags. But like I said, I love these things, and I think they're just so fun to talk about, and the process that they're made with, and just the different stores having different bags. Now, we shop at Whole Foods. We also shop at Market Basket, which is a less expensive store, but we love the produce at Whole Foods, so it's worth the time and the money to go there. But this bag from Whole Foods is a good example of the quality that this company puts into their products. And you can see here, they're just really well made and well constructed. They're designed really well. It's almost like a little work of art unto itself. They're great there's multiple uses to recycle with these. You could use them for storage at home. You can put stuff in it, fold it over, and use a binder clip to seal it and put it on a shelf or something. You can store stuff in these. You can use them to recycle, your groceries with. And you can see here how strong these handles are. They're really well designed. And let's get into that handle just in a second. But yeah, you can get these from the grocery store, bring your groceries home, put them aside, and then the next time you go back to the grocery store, you can use them again and again and again. I love that about these bags. Now, the handle that I'm showing you here, it's actually a single sheet of paper that's been tightly mechanically wound, really tightly, to form a cord. And I think this is brilliant. Just what brilliant design is this to use paper, recycled paper? Now, if I just cut a piece away, you can see it's just a little tiny piece of paper. That's all. It's very thin, but it's when it's tightly wound like that, it's amazing. So that's the top of the bag. The bottom of the bag is really well designed because they glue it together, so it's very, very strong. And so your stuff's not going to fall out of the bottom. You're going to use those handles to carry your groceries home. And again, you can use these bags over and over. You can store things in them. You can do whatever you want with these bags. They're great. Now, other stores use different products, different bags that are not as high quality. And there's a reason for that, which I'll get into. Now, what I'm doing here is I'm going to go through this bag and I want to sort of clip out the areas that I can't use. That's the areas that have a lot of glue on them that I just can't use. So those are going to go into my recycle bin and I can't use those. So what I'm left with once I'm done here is, you can see there's areas where there's glue and I just can't use that. So what I'll do is find the seam here and I'll cut that seam off. That's the last piece with glue. And once I cut that seam off that joins the two ends, I have this beautiful sheet of paper, this long piece of paper, and I'm going to cut out the sides of the bag where there's multiple folds because I really can't use that for much right now. But what I'm left with is these two wonderful little pieces of paper that, I love that they're tri-folded already for me. So I can tri-fold these, and I'll use these and I'll draw pictures on one side and write a letter to a friend on the other side, and I'll mail this out. So this is how I'll use these. But I can use these for anything. It's a wonderful piece of toned paper. It's that brown toned paper that I can now use to draw on. And that's the beauty of these things. Now, the best part is that I can use that side piece that I kind of cut away, and I can use this as sort of a test page. And I can use gel pen, and I'm going to try and see what Sharpie looks like and Posca markers. And I'm going to use that, and then I'll go in with some whites, some Posca white marker, white charcoal, and we'll just see how white colored pencil all work using on this paper. And we'll get into that. You'll see this unfold as we watch. What I do want to talk about is the bag itself. Now, the Whole Foods bag, they are from a company called Mohawk Fine Paper from upstate New York. It's a company that's been around for decades, maybe like 90 years. They are owned by a parent company called Fedrigoni, the Fedrigoni Group, and they produce specialty and luxury papers and adhesives. So these companies, it's big business for them. Bags and their products are big business. And it's amazing because you never think about your paper bag when you're coming from the grocery store. But there's another company called High Trend. They're out of Canada. And these companies are very responsible. They are certified by the FSC, that's the Forest Stewardship Council. I have other videos that I talk about this stuff, about recycled paper and so forth. So I love recycling. I think it's just such an awesome concept. And when it's done correctly, it really works. And so these companies are certified, which means that they source their trees and their wood products responsibly, and they get their supplies from sustainable forests. These are forests that are specifically grown to make paper products. So when they cut trees down, they replace those trees. So it's a constantly evolving and rotating system. Back to the drawing here, you can see I'm going to use this Faber-Castell colored pencil. It's just a white colored pencil. And you're going to see just how cool this is. Now, I use the gel pen with some water because the gel pen bleeds a little bit and it's like watercolor. So you get some tonation there. But look at the highlights you get using just a colored pencil on this paper. It has enough tooth to it that the white colored pencil really stands out nicely on it. It's just such a fun feeling to use too, because once you put that pencil on that toned paper, it just is a great feeling. Now, you can buy Strathmore paper. You can buy other toned papers. There's blue, there's gray, there's tan, there's all kinds of toned papers. But when you can get it at the grocery store and recycle it, there's sort of a better feeling about that. I enjoy that feeling. Using the white charcoal and the black charcoal, now we can get into blending and just, it's really cool and really fun to use. Now, I'm going to put a link down below about Whole Foods bags and how they're made and where they come from. There's a whole website about that, and I really encourage you to look at that if you are interested in this process. The process of making paper is a whole, it's a whole story unto itself. Recycled paper is just such a process, and it's really weird to me how somebody figured this out and that they came up with all this stuff. And they've been doing it, these companies have been doing it forever. And this goes back to European paper making. It goes back to Fabriano paper used to make theirs the same way. And I have a video, like I said, there's a Fabriano video that I made that talks about the recycling process and how they make their papers. And it's all very similar. It's just nowadays it's more chemical and it's more energy consumption and so forth. And there's sort of a negative side to recycling, which that's a whole other thing. But what I'm going to do next here is I want to pull out some pastels. My friend Shana, who has a channel on YouTube called Caution Artist at Play, she's an amazing artist, and she is just so talented and skilled with her craft that she recently did a video on pastels, which in a conversation we had in her comments, it encouraged me to pull out my pastels, which you can, these are really, really old. I probably haven't pulled these out. This is the first time I've used these pastels in probably 20 years. I'm not a big pastel guy, but I used to use them quite a bit. I have some Grumbucker in there, some Winsor Newton, I think, maybe even a Schminker or two. I forget what's in there, but there's just a ton of pastels in here that I just haven't used in a long time. But they are great for this kind of paper. And you can see here, I'm just working with that. As far as the paper process goes, recycled paper is basically ground down into like a pulp. It's all the wood fibers mushed down and mixed with water and chemicals into a slurry. And that liquidy paste is then added with more chemicals to break down those wood fibers. And that's called pulping. So when they get that pulp, they grind it down so much and separate all those fibers and then press it into sheets, which are then rolled. The water is squeezed out, and the sheets are put onto cylinders where they're cooked and dried until they're ready to go onto cylinders, where they're spun onto cylinders where they can determine the weight and thickness, and then they cut them and send them off to final manufacturing. So making paper bags is like a whole process in itself. I mean, it's crazy when you think about this stuff. With paper bags, once the sheets of that recycled paper go through the process, they're sent to a mechanical process where they're formed and folded and glued. And in the case of Whole Foods, they get printed on with ink, and it's a silkscreen process. So there's a whole thing about paper bags. And again, like I said in the earlier part, I never thought I'd be talking about, paper bags and recycling paper bags. But the big issue that some people have, the complaint, is that there's a huge water consumption when it comes to recycling paper products, huge energy consumption, just in the terms of the power it takes to do all this processing. And of course, the chemical treatment. So there's a lot of chemicals put on these papers to get them to this process and to get them to this point where you can use them as a paper bag or gift wrapping or whatever. The first round of recycling. So when you take a virgin tree from a forest and you cut it down, that high quality paper is used for commercial papers, copy papers, and high-end products, high-end paper products. And once that's taken and recycled, the second round of recycled paper is usually ground down, again, treated with chemicals, and used for things like cardboard, grocery bags, compost bags, gift wrapping paper, and a lot of mid-quality paper products. The third and fourth rounds, usually they don't get to a fourth round, but sometimes they'll stretch some recycled products to a fourth round. What happens is when it comes to the third round, that's when you're talking about your paper towels, toilet paper, and papers that usually head right to a compost when they're used. Because after that third round, the pulp just can't, the wood fibers can't be broken down anymore. They've been broken down so much and chemically treated so much that they'll just fall apart. Nothing will hold them together. That's why we have 2-ply toilet paper, because 1-ply is just so fibrous, it just comes right apart. There's no wood fiber left. It's all just that pulp material. So when you have something like toilet paper or paper towels, it's pressed, it's rolled, it's formed, and they put patterns on it to make it look nice. But when it comes down to it, toilet paper's going down the drain. So, you can't really do too much with it. But anyway, so here I'm doing this drawing. This is just a stream of conscious drawing that I'm just making, just a kind of a fun scene of people. And I'm using all the different mediums here to create this image. So I've got the Posca markers, I've got the colored pencil in there, I've got some white Posca marker, and I've got some pastel in there. I've got some charcoal pencil too. And so I'm just blending these things out to make this image look good. I really love working with this paper. I probably stated that enough, but it's just such a fun process and I really enjoy it. And you can see the result. It's just a silly, fun drawing on a paper bag. And that's a great way to recycle these bags. Another way of recycling a bag is to make a book cover out of it. Now, this is something that I've been doing since middle school, and that's when we used to cut paper bags up to put on our textbooks at school. And it was a fun process, but back then we didn't have a lot of book covers. Like, they weren't manufactured until later. But by the time I was in high school, you could go to the bank and get a free book cover, but they were terrible. They had printing all over them and you couldn't draw on them. Paper bags were the standard for every kid in school. We all covered our books. We were told to cover our books by the school. So we would take a book and we'd bring it home, cut the paper bag up, center it, and then start folding that book, folding the paper around the book to make a book cover. And you can see I've got the printed side up, laying out the book flat, and then I'm going to just sort of outline the book. That's my measurements right there. That's what I need to do for my folding. And then you just trim it up and you fold the different flaps. It's such an easy process. It's so fun, and it takes care of your books. My daughter, for Christmas, she bought me a Hayao Miyazaki, the animator. She bought a biography of his for me. It's a hardcover book. And I put a book cover over that using a paper bag because I want to keep it protected. And I don't read it every day, so I just put it on the shelf. And if I go on a trip or something, I bring it with me and I read it. And the great thing is I can draw on that book cover. And when I was in school, I had a little scheme that I had going where kids would always ask me to draw on their book covers, either crazy characters or little drawings. But a lot of kids liked having logos, like the Rolling Stones logo, Van Halen or AC/DC. So I had a little scheme where I would say, okay, I'll draw a logo on your book for you, but I want your dessert at lunch in payment. So I was able to collect payment at the middle school age for drawing these pictures on kids' books, and I would get their dessert at lunch. And it was a great scheme. I always had desserts, and I shared the desserts with my friends. And it was a great little, hustle on my end. But it was a great way to sort of just connect with other people through my artwork. And it was on paper bags. So this has been something that I've been working with since I was a kid, since probably like 14 years old, 13 years old. And I still do it. And that's why I'm sharing this video with you today, because it's just something that I really, really enjoy. And I hope you enjoyed watching this. And you can see here now I've got this great sketchbook that I had. It's a recycled sketchbook too. It's an old sketchbook. So I've got this book cover protecting my sketchbook with a paper bag. I'm doing the environment good by keeping this paper in circulation and not sending it to the compost pile. And that's the best thing for the environment, is to keep these products in circulation. And I like that idea. So I'll use this as my sketchbook, and so I get this great, book cover out of it. And I also was able to create a really interesting drawing that I'll send to a friend. And I hope you enjoyed watching this. So if you enjoyed watching it, thank you for coming by. If you liked it and you'd like more content like this, please subscribe to the channel, because I'd love to bring you more content. Well, thank you again for coming by. I hope you enjoyed this. As always, take care and God bless.